well.
So obviously I agree with a lot of that, and I think that this is the flaw in Sam's reasoning is not his questioning of faith per se; it's his faith in reason alone, and the idea that by reason alone you can achieve whatever values Sam wants you to achieve. And that I find deeply problematic, especially because we had 200 years where people were basically trying this and it did not work out particularly well.
Well, but it may be that, for example, that religion served us better in the past, but that Sam is right about our future, even if we don't have an atheist scale plan. I mean, it could be that we could institute rituals that are actually devoid of a belief in the supernatural that take over the Chomsky pre-grammar. I'm not saying that that's foreclosed.
It's possible, but it was a giant fail for 200 years, right?
We had
a cult of reason in France. We had essentially a communist ritual system.
I
Russia.
don't believe the argument that we should treat Russia, Soviet Russia, as a religion, and therefore it's not an experiment with the failure of atheism. I think that there's great danger in religion. There's great danger in an absence of religion, and what's really necessary is to move that conversation in which our values are embedded, even if we're atheistic, because we're benefiting from the fact that we come from a substrate that was a largely Judeo-Christian system. And I agreed with you. And by the way, I really appreciated your willingness to forego any appeal to Torah or Bible in favor of a really appeal to reason for religion. And I think that was really interesting.
Well, I mean, because otherwise we have no common frame of reference for the conversation. So I may find that stuff inspiring and meaningful, but Sam clearly doesn't. So if I'm quoting him from the Bible, who cares? I mean, he's not going to resonate to that, and it's not going to be an argument that's necessarily worth winning with his audience. Because how do I win? By citing Leviticus? Like that's just not a winning argument.
Well, particularly Deuteronomy really loses me. The thing that really gets me about some of the conversations that we're having is that you have a very large number of people in our network. I would say Brett Weinstein, you, me, Jordan. Maybe Douglas Murray, who I think are quite sympathetic to religion without making arguments from religion.
I think everybody in the group, basically, if they were willing to admit it, would if they were willing to admit it, I think pretty much everybody who we're talking about is essentially a natural law theologian. The only question is whether you're cutting God out of the picture or not. Well, because Sam is basically making a natural law argument. He's saying this is the universe calls us to essentially forward human flourishing, and then I just have a problem with his definitions.
But the problem would be, and I don't want to have to ask you about this on camera, but if I said, how sure are you about the truth of the revelation at Sinai? I'm not entirely sure that you could give me a basis for that, nor would I want to.
No, I can't give you a rational basis for revelation at Sinai.
Right, and so
the best that I can do is sort of Maimonides' explanation, which is that something happened at Sinai, and I'm not sure quite what. And people got from that, this is what he says in Guide for the Perplexed, and what people got from that is there is a God and there shouldn't be idolatry, which human reason can bring you to. And then that Moses was a particularly inspired logical figure who was able to access higher modes of thinking and brings the Torah down from Sinai through direct communication with God. That's essentially Maimonides' argument.
And I'm worried about even that. So in some sense, if I am feeling sick and I go to the drugstore and I say, don't you guys have a placebo you can give me that can cure my ailment? If I'm really in on the conceit that I don't have to, fully believe something, it's not clear to what effect, that it may be that you really get the benefit from being certain that there was a revelation at Sinai. And so the question of self-deception and its efficacy in human flourishing is a very interesting one.
No, and I think this is a key question that's sort of broken out, is you have to believe in the reality of revelation or just the importance of revelation? And my belief is that you sort of have to believe that at minimum, you have to believe in the importance. If you believe in the reality, so much the better, because then you have it easier. But believing in the importance is the minimum of understanding the evolution of Western civilization.
I think that's the ante that gets you in, and then you have a situation in which you probably need a superposition of belief and lack of belief in order to have a decent life. That's probably always existed, but one of the things that's so odd about this is that it's hard to talk about without destroying the efficacy. And these sort of questions of self-contemplation, when you're trying to solve this ought from is problem, may have something to do with the limits of discourse. And I think that this is something that would be much more interesting to model than the usual dorm level discussions about whether there's a God.